Hello and welcome back to episode number 9 of the series Masters of the Chessboard. In this series we are going through the famous book by Richard Reti, Masters of the Chessboard, looking at each of the games in this book one at a time and going through Reti's analysis of these games to hopefully try and learn a few new things. This is the final game of Paul Morphy. I believe it's the 5th one in the book, and it's the legendary opera game where Morphy has the white pieces and is playing against two people, the Duke of Brunswick, Charles II, and Count Isouard. So the game starts off with Morphy playing e4, e5, knight f3, d6, going into the Philidor defence, and Reti has already discussed this defence quite a bit in some of the earlier games, so he doesn't actually comment on this at all. We then see d4 going into the main line, and then bishop to g4. And Reti is quite critical of this move, and it doesn't really score that well today. It's not a very good move, really. Reti says that this move clearly means that a loss of tempo, because after d takes e5, black has to take on f3 in order to avoid the loss of a second pawn, because d takes e5, d takes e5, queen takes d8, king takes, and you have knight takes e5. So here black is forced to take on f3 after d takes e5, which means that there'll be a loss of a tempo after the exchange, because after bishop takes f3, we have queen takes f3, and then we'll have a queen out, and black won't have any pieces out. So it's a loss of tempo through the exchange. And we see this happen in the game. d takes e5, bishop takes f3. So obviously if d takes e5, we have queen takes, king takes, and knight takes, winning a pawn with a tempo and a bishop. So instead, black takes on f3, which is the best move at this point. And we have queen takes f3 and d takes e5. And this is what Reti was talking about when he said about the loss of tempo. It's a white's move, so white can develop, and white already has a piece out and a pawn in the centre. Black just has a pawn in the centre. So black is a tempo down and is about to be really down in development, actually. So Morphy responds with bishop c4, threatening mate, knight f6, blocking the mate. And here Reti comments that black's loss of time can quite clearly be seen in the position. White has a symmetrical pawn position, but there are two pieces developed, whereas black only has one. And this move, knight f3, Reti described as an error because it allows a double attack by Morphy, namely queen b3, threatening this b7 pawn and this f7 pawn. So the black players play queen e7, and their hope discards the f7 pawn, and their hope is that after queen takes here, they can go to check here, forcing this exchange of queens. However, Morphy doesn't go for this. Instead, he follows up with knight to c3. Morphy has a far better lead in development, and so he's not satisfied with just simply gaining a single pawn for the lead in development. And Reti comments that in order to evaluate this position correctly, you need to consider that queen e7 isn't actually properly developed, because the queen on e7 obstructs this bishop. So the queen will be forced to use another tempo to move in order to try and protect the pawn on b7 and allow this bishop to develop. So black players play c6, which indirectly defends this pawn on b7. And then Morphy follows up with bishop to g5, pinning the knight to the queen. And now the black players play b5. And this b5 move, attempting to try and move the bishop away from this diagonal to free up the queen, allows white quite a decisive combination. Morphy takes on b5, c takes b5, bishop takes b5 check. Black blocks the check with a knight quite naturally, and notice both knights are pinned, and then castles, so threatening to win this knight. And this knight on d7 is the centerpiece of this entire combination now. Black player follows up with rook d8, again quite naturally defending the knight. And then we see rook takes d7. Obviously the black player can't take with the king. Taking with the queen would just lose the queen, so they take with the rook. But now this rook is pinned, and this is why Morphy took with the rook, because after taking, black will have to take back with the rook, and the rook will be pinned, so there'll be more opportunities for tactical combinations because the pin would remain in place. And we see this with Morphy's next move, rook d1. And here Reti comments that this black rook being pinned to the king like this removes a defender of the back rank. Now the black players respond with queen e6, unpinning the knight and also offering a queen trade. And here Reti comments that white has quite a few different ways they can win. The simplest is bishop takes f3, and after queen takes b3, bishop takes d7 check. Let's put that on the board. So bishop takes f6, not f3. Queen takes b3, and then bishop takes d7 check. And this will be mate. But we don't see that. We see bishop takes d7 check. Knight takes d7. And now we see the crux of the combination. White plays queen b8 check. So Morphy sees this tactical pattern, this common mating idea with the rook and bishop. And the only piece stopping this is the knight. So Morphy plays queen b8 check, forcing this knight to take on b8. So then he can play rook d8 mate. It may also be worth looking at, in this position we saw knight takes d7. But quite interesting is queen takes d7, where after queen b8 check, obviously the queen can't defend because it will just be lost and mate. So we see king e7. If after queen e5 check, king d8, bishop takes f6 check, g takes f6, queen takes f6 check. Now bishop e7 wins the rook, and we haven't really got many other good moves. Queen c7, king c7 will just win the queen. There aren't really any decent moves after this. And these are all computer lines after queen takes d7. But it's very likely that Morphy would have seen these because they're all quite forcing and obvious lines after queen takes d7. So there we have it. That's the famous opera game. Called the opera game because it was played during an opera show. Morphy was on his own playing against the Charles II, Duke of Brunswick, and Count Isouard. And yeah, that's the game. And that's the final Morphy game, a field or defense. The next master that we're going to cover is the famous Steinitz, the first world champion, which I'm quite looking forward to because I haven't actually looked at many Steinitz games myself, so it should be quite instructive. So if you like this video, please like, comment and subscribe, and if you've got any feedback or any suggestions or requests, please just leave a comment and I will try and read them all. And other than that, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.